Now, let's talk to Rakib Ehsan, who is political commentator, of course, a man that we speak to an awful lot on this show. A couple of stories to talk to you about, Rakib. Very good morning to you. The first one, front page, page 3 of the Daily Mail. Mohammed is now the top boy's name. I've got a feeling that we get this story, you know, on quite a regular basis. I don't think this is the first time that I've read this headline, is it?
No, it's not. And actually, if you look at the variations of the spelling Muhammad, this has been the case for the best part of 15 years or so.
Well, that's what I think. I mean, I remember doing it when I was still working in newspapers, I think.
Absolutely. So it's nothing new for me. And there are many baby boys who are born to Muslim parents, born into Muslim families, who are given Muhammad as their first official name. My first official name is actually Muhammad as well.
Oh, is it?
And they'll be commonly referred to, in my case, Rakib, to a different name, which would actually constitute their middle name if you're looking at it from a documentation point of view.
Right. So, I mean, if you've got a passport, without wishing to give too much away, does it say Mohammed Rakib Ehsan?
Exactly. Yeah. Got that correct.
No, OK. Apparently, there are 37 different ways of spelling it, according to this piece here. But the top names are Mohammed, Noah, Oliver, George, Leo, Arthur, Luca, Theodore, Oscar and Henry. I mean, whenever you see these stories, people go, oh, well, this tells you that, you know, Britain is lost and all that. I mean, I don't really see it like that, to be honest. I think it's just one of these quirks that, as you say, comes up because of the way, perhaps, that, if by the sounds of it, every Muslim boy born to a Muslim family is called Muhammad.
Yeah, it's a very common practice within British Muslim communities. But looking at that list there, I'd have to say, Mike, I quite like some of those names in general. They have quite a traditional feel.
Yeah.
So some of those traditional names, they seem to be very much in vogue at the moment when it comes to naming babies.
Right. And on the female side, we've got Olivia, Amelia, Isla, Lily, Freya, Ava, Ivy, Florence, Willow and Isabella. They all sound terribly English to me.
No, absolutely. I think what it is with girls' name, there's a greater. I think to my understanding, there's a greater diversification when it comes to naming baby girls. So I think many people say that this shows that there's a radical pace of demographic change in the UK. We can have a conversation about demographic change. I'd also make the point, Mike, then it's something that we've talked about previously, is that your average Muslim, average person in a Muslim community, they're more likely to prioritise marriage as an institution. They're more likely to see child raising an integral part of adulthood. So it's natural that we'll see that these kind of changes, especially when it comes to naming babies.
Yeah. I mean, one of the stories, of course, of the week and one of the stories of the year, I suppose, has been the falling birth rate in the UK and across most of Europe. I mean, I'm reading a story this morning saying Europe is facing a birth rate crisis as new figures show just 3.27 million infants were born across the 27 nations during 2023, down more than 5%. We've got a failing birth rate and yet our population obviously is going up, and that can only be down to one thing, and it's the dreaded word immigration, isn't it?
No, absolutely, and there's no doubt that the immigration has had a cultural impact in the UK. That there's no two ways about it. But I think when it comes to talking about declining birth rates, many will talk about our housing crisis. Yeah. That there's a very unfavourable salary to house price ratio. Many people probably make the decision that having a child is just too expensive in an ongoing cost of living crisis. Yeah. But that doesn't seem to put off many socially conservative migrants. So I think that there is a debate to be had to what extent do people prioritise marriage as an institution, how much they truly want children, and to what extent are they willing to sacrifice their individual freedom. So, I mean, Mike, you're a father yourself. You'll have to admit that you have to sacrifice an element of personal freedom in order to grow out your family.
Oh, that's for sure. And there's an awful lot of young people in this country who have decided, for one reason or another, not to have children, or perhaps to have them much later in life. They're not having them as early, perhaps, as they used to. But here's an interesting statistic. Romania, apparently, saw births plummet by a massive 13.9%. Now, I've got nothing to say about this which is in any way evidential, but it might be possible, might it not, that a lot of Romanian births are actually taking place in Britain, and they're not taking place in Romania. So Romanian people have come to Britain, and they're having their children here, and that's why Romania's births plummeted by nearly 14%. Same goes for Poland and the Czech Republic, who are both down about 10%.
Yeah, I think there's a case that in those countries there's been growing forms of cultural liberalism, even in parts of Central and Eastern Europe, which we traditionally view as quite conservative, well, relatively conservative societies. Yeah. But there's also an argument that if you're an aspirational part of Romanian, Polish, or indeed Czech society, you may think that if you want to get married and grow out a family, that there may be other European societies, perhaps in Western Europe, that may be relatively more economically developed, that would be a better place to actually raise a family. So there's also that possibility as well.
Of course. And let's talk just finally about Keir Starmer and his 5 pillars, or whatever you want to call them. There were 7 pillars, 6 milestones, 5 missions, 3 foundations. But as the front page of the Daily Mail says, not one firm target to cut migration. You know, the one thing that everybody in this country wants to see action on, whether it's on legal migration, whether it's on illegal migration, there doesn't seem to be a plan from Labour.
No, absolutely not. And I think that it felt more like a manifesto launch. And I think it's very clear that the Labour government, they've not hit the ground running. And this is a desperate attempt to sort of rejuvenate itself. But I think that the worry is when you look at these milestones, this so-called plan for change, I think that immigration needed to be at the heart and centre of it. Because if there's not notable reductions in immigration, if we don't sort out a dysfunctional asylum system, then many of these other objectives are going to be more difficult to achieve. So there's a target there in terms of growing 1.5 million homes, new homes, which is a very ambitious target. But what kind of impact will that have on house prices, for example, if immigration continues to run at such a high level?
Yeah, exactly right. Well, they're talking about building 1.5 million houses. We know that that's not going to be enough, you know, because at the end of the day, you know, the numbers of people coming to this country over the next 5 to 10 years is going to be in the millions, no question at all. Finally, what about old Sadiq Khan? Apparently he's going to get knighted at the end of this year. The New Year's honours list is going to be, it's going to be a rotten thing to wake up to on New Year's Day, isn't it? Once you've seen the Sadiq Khan fireworks, where you can only go and stand and watch them but not have a drink. You're encouraged not to go and stand and watch them anywhere where you're not supposed to stand and watch them. And he's going to be Sir Sadiq Khan. A lot of people not happy about that.
Well, it seems that mediocrity is rewarded in a very special way in modern Britain. And I think that what it really shows, Mike, is that we can talk about Sadiq Khan potentially becoming a knight, potentially being knighted. But I think that the honours system has disgraced itself in many ways. I think there's many people who have been awarded knighthoods who have become dames. And you have to really question the choice of those people. But for me, Sadiq Khan, in terms of whether he deserves it or not, I think that the bigger issue really is that the honours system all too often you have these titles being awarded to those who, in my view, I don't think they've really achieved all that much, and quite often they're quite questionable characters as well. Yeah,
well, that's the thing, and as you say, a lot of people are going along with you with that. We get Sue Gray in the House of Lords, we get Sir Sadiq Khan, you got Emily Thornberry apparently who might get a damehood as well. It just sounds like absolute and utter rubbish, doesn't it? Good to talk to you, Rakib. Thanks very much indeed.